treasurer, and a number of individuals in the audience that have signed in. So,
Judge, click your computer. They got it.
thank you. With that, the second item on our agenda is review and approval of the minutes of December 20 and December 27th, which were distributed in your packages Friday. Are there any comments or corrections on the, let's do it one at a time, the minutes of December 20?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of December the 20th, 2021.
Is there a second? That's a motion from Commissioner Williams.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Wright. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We have unanimous approval of the minutes of December 20. Now for the minutes of December 27th. This,
Make a motion to approve the minutes of December 27th as read, as presented to us.
I second.
okay, motion from Commissioner Wright, second from Commissioner Williams. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous approval. Audience with individuals. We had one individual signed up to speak. Dwayne Rawson, you wish to speak about virus subsidies. If you would come up to the podium, please.
Good morning. As I was campaigning, I had a couple issues people asked me to address the court about. One was the grant that Mills County was awarded for the virus program. People want to know that being that since over $100,000 was spent on this virus starting since 2019, they want to know if the funds that were spent from this grant, some people still does not have the computers for the internet. They want to know if it can be posted in the Ghostwave Eagle and not on the website because they do not have access to the internet. Because they feel like since they started posting on the internet, people are losing information what's going on in their account. They don't have a computer. I'm talking about the older generation. They don't want a computer. They feel like they're being forced to because everything's being posted on the internet. They don't have any interest in getting computers, so they're being blocked off from information what's going on in their account. They want to go back, excuse me, saying the old ways, where the Ghostwave Eagle had it posted in the papers, but they no longer have access to what's going on in their account. They want to know if they can start having information posted back in the paper like we used to. And my question is, as I'm watching these special sessions going on subdivisions, are these being updated? What I'm talking about one is these new requirements for the solar wind turbine now that has to be put on these plots. Are they being the policies? Is it being updated as they're changing now? Because they noticed like it was the word proposed was in there at one time, but y'all choose to take it out and put a requirement in there. And that was the judge's words. He took out the word proposed and made a requirement for solar and wind turbine to be on the plots, even though we're not guaranteed that the person that buys the plot is going to take it, use the wind turbine or solar. But now the owner's putting subdivision in there. It's the, I guess, I didn't go back to see if y'all how you worded it. But y'all put in there word with solar and wind turbine that needs to be set up on the plots. The next one is when y'all addressing somebody in the audience, is there a way you can have them have a mic or something? One of the meetings y'all addressed it, Jet Johnson about something there. Can't care what his reply was because he was in the audience and he was saying something, but it couldn't be heard on what his reply was. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this being the first meeting of the month, in addition to the first meeting of the year, we have the monthly departmental reports as a consent agenda that I'll quickly flip through. Do not have the county extension agent report or the vehicle registration report. So those will be next month or next meeting. The first thing on the agenda is there is a monthly report from the treasurer's office that lists the summary of the transactions in each of the checking funds, the investment funds of the county, and then shows the county's bonded indebtedness, which remains at $6,193,987. There's detail behind it, and it is followed by the quarterly treasurer's report, which covers not only December, but the fourth calendar quarter of last year, and ends up in the same place as the December report. And it is followed by a separate investment report that actually lists the investments by fund and by investment type. At this point, substantially all of the investments are in certificates of deposit. The most recent ones, the rates are running just under 0.5%. You can see on some of the older ones, it was as low as a 0.1% at one time. And then that is followed by the accounts payable report. This is not for the month or the quarter. This is since our last meeting. It's about a 14-page report of details of all the proposed bills which the treasurer is prepared to pay. This would be the time for the court to ask any questions or comments they have on these.
Got a few on the first page. JP's expense, Heart of Texas cremation.
Yeah, that was I was involved in that, and that may end up getting charged to some other department. That was a pauper's funeral. It was a person that was killed in the county, was sent for an autopsy. So separately, there'll be an autopsy, and then following the autopsy, no one would claim the body. And so it's a statutory requirement for county responsibility to dispose of bodies of paupers. And
so are we gonna take that cremation to the cemetery, or?
yes, I mean, it's yes, it'd be the short answer. Some family has subsequently come forward and offered to take it, but without payment. So might be a little bit of discussion to be had.
Next page, page 2. I didn't know what Scott Merriman, tax assessor collector's office, statement of residence forms, new. Didn't know what that was.
The $299
Yes, ma'am. And 41 cents.
and 41 cents. When this has to do with verifying a voter, Lori could address this better, but I will tell you from an election standpoint, when someone is a provisional, or if we have a jury summons that's returned, we have to verify their address. And I know that we give them a statement of residence form. It comes out of the voter registration bucket responsibilities. It's to help quantify or qualify that voter.
It sounds like a required form, and it probably has to get ordered.
Well, when it said new on there,
Yeah.
I didn't know what that word new
There's a
meant.
lot
So-
of changes that have taken place with the election laws that have come out. We've had to reorder like all of our absentee ballot by mail kits, even though we had some left over from prior elections. The Secretary of State has changed the wording on it or changed the format or something. So you're not supposed to use old forms. You have to use the current form that they've updated. So you're going to be seeing some bills come through for election supplies because our current supply stash is out of date. We're not supposed to use it anymore.
I have one question on page 6, Jason, this is directly to you. Annual training and meals for training for 1,800. What was that?
Well, the 1,800 is parts for the tractor. That's not for the training. That's the next line down.
It says meals, precinct 4, meals for training.
$34.86.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. My apologies.
What's that? It was a
I would
good
question
meeting.
that one too, if it was $1,800. Where'd you go? Las Vegas or something?
Oh, man.
It's
Yeah,
a nice
it's good.
meal.
Yeah, that's what in the annual training, what is that?
That, I went to the, you know, you had to get your hours for the year. So I went,
Oh, was that the Round Rock deal?
no, well, it was Corpus Christi.
Okay.
I like 2 hours and I got on all mine because I missed the San Angelo one.
Yeah,
And so I went down to Corpus Christi, the last schooling of the year. So
gotcha. Yeah,
due to COVID, you know how that works.
I understand.
So
Yeah, that was just on one, I misread the wrong.
there you go. Just note while we're on that same page, the next page, is that you see that road and bridge special disbursement there?
Yes.
That is the rock crusher. We had fuel rail problems and the code kept coming up on it, and Kirby come out and checked it out, and they did it at our shop. And you had to replace it's the sensors in the fuel rail on the side of that tractor.
How long is that? You know,
We didn't even have it 2 weeks or a week,
I started
and it
saying,
started doing that.
you know, we made a kind of agreement among the court that we rotated every month, and I hadn't seen it in a year, so I don't know what.
I think it's been an extended term.
Yeah, I've only had it a month and it's been broke down twice in a month.
We carried it Kirby Moore's July the 1st, and it was there till November.
And then it's just it's the codes just keep coming up on it every time and it shuts itself down. It won't run, it won't operate. And so then you're waiting on Kirby to come out and check it out.
And all that's been taken care of, man, hopefully. Hopefully. Just wanted back, 'cause I
It
knew we
was working
But-
yesterday.
They're bringing it in today, so I guess I don't know who gets it next. It's whoever wants it. It's right. Isn't that what we're doing?
I wanted not. Y'all needed it more than it's been broke down with y'all. I know,
You don't know if you want it.
I don't want it, they'll have it.
We set it up last year for each commissioner to have it a month at a time. I think we had it 1 month and it was only operating on the slower RPM, so really we didn't use it.
Well, won't you start again then, if you want to, and that way y'all can use it if you need to. How's that?
That'll work.
I can't speak for Jed, but I know my precinct's pretty well caught up with it.
Okay. Yeah. We'll take it from Jason.
Okay, anything else on payables? Okay. Behind the payables report, we have the monthly report from the appraisal district. This is tax collections, the total collections for county tax,
Do
million
you have that one?
362. Yeah. I guess the short answer is there's nothing to see here. We're 37.3% collected through December. Most of the taxes come in January. We're about where we were last year. The only significant uncollected taxes are the Encore appeal of 310,000 from 2 years ago. And I do not know the status of that. I will even pass that down to Commissioner.
They're still waiting on a judge to set the.
Set a date for a hearing. Okay.
It seems like every other day. I think it's tired of asking.
The next two reports are from the county and district clerk's office. It's the monthly fees report. You can see that the county fees are, reading this right, just a little 12,943, and the district fees, sure, if I am reading this right, there's a 7,999 number. Most of the county fees, again, are reporting and related activity with the, and most of the district fees are fines and court costs.
I have an addition to that. There was an extra page that was included with the district fees.
Yes, I'm going to get to that. Okay, the next page behind the fees that are collected is the fee schedule for the district clerk, basically filing fees. Would you like to speak to this, Ms. Scott?
The Office of Court Administration changed the fee structure beginning January 1, 2022. We've been working on this with e-file and with our LGS vendors to get our fees updated. So these are set by the state. This doesn't require your approval, but I want you to see it. This is also going to be posted on our webpage. It's something we have not done in the past, is keep a current fee schedule on our webpage. You'll be seeing more of these come through as we try to update our webpage with our fee schedule. This is the district civil, because that's what changed effective January 1. As we get other fee schedules built for the public and get them on our webpage, I can push them to court so you can see them. But they are controlled by the state. There are a few things that the commissioners vote on to. We didn't change anything that the commissioners have authority over about that.
Okay, yeah, and that's why we just put it in the consent agenda. It's really information. The next item is the monthly sheriff's office report. You can see the total calls of 265 for the month of December. More than half of them, 175 to be exact, are for law enforcement. Well, that was sheriff, and then there's DPS and game warden. EMS calls of 57. I mean, over the last several months, that number is typically 60-ish. And then arrest, new jail bookings, which come out of Mills County arrest, as well as other agencies arrest, and the serving of civil papers. And down at the bottom is the money, the bills for the out-of-county prisoner housing in the jail, $15,350. And then the detail, you can see that Coryell County with $12,700 amounts to most of that. And then, you know, thousand plus type number from Hamilton and Bell counties. Behind that is the monthly Justice of the Peace report. You can see the usual case activity. The second page is the civil section. Sees the resolutions there exceeded the new case filings. The page on juvenile activity is 0, as it usually is. And the final page, you can see up at the top, the number of magistrations performed at the jail. There's 9 of them in December. 3 of those have requested court county paid counsel. And then at the very bottom of the page, you can see the fee collections with 14,333 collected, of which the county keeps 8,544. That's the JP report. The judge's office report for the month and year is enclosed. You can see we sold a book or 2 books for the historical commission. The senior center was used 5 times and generated some income. 5 septic permits were issued and generated $1,550. The total septic for the year is $10,540. The prior year was 9,000, not calendar year, 9,520. And then the year before on 4,380. So you can see a real step up in septic activity. And that's a best proxy we have for rural new housing. There's our EMS report from Hamilton EMS. showing the number of calls each month and average response times in the city, which is the first page of 4 minutes and 22 seconds. And in the county, 12 minutes and 40 seconds. There's a dotted line on the graph that was the targeted or the minimum. It's the average response time minimum in the contract. And it's exceeded 92% of the, not exceeded. The calls are, let me say it this way, 92% of the city calls are quicker than the required average. And 73% of the county calls are quicker than the required average. There were 4 calls in the county that were outside of the required average, and that's why it's an average. There's some things always are exceeded. One of them was when a call that was answered by the ambulance from San Saba, because our ambulance was already in service on another call, and the other 3 were in some of the county road locations that they just have difficulty reaching quickly from Gulfway. And the last report is, I believe it's the last one, from our veteran service officer. It's a page of detail, but it's matters involving 42 different veterans, and spent 50 hours on it, and then listed in detail of what it was. So that is the consent agenda for the month, and I would move we approve it.
With the exception of the when you had the MCAT, with the exception of the county.
Yes, approve the ones I read. So what is not here is the county extension officer report. Vehicle registration is also not here, but we knew that in advance and did not list it on the agenda. So I would amend my motion to approve the consent agenda absent the extension office report.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next item on the agenda, number 4, is accept a budget certificate for 2021, 2022. The certificate is in your package. It is something our auditor, Barr and Associates, requested. It's not something that we had done previously, and at one level, it's a certificate signed by the county judge and attested by the county clerk that says the budget that in this case, it's the budget we sent to the auditor, is the same budget as was approved in Commissioner's Court. And that budget was stamped and filed at the time. So the issue, the reason this is in here is that it's a certificate that was done at year end for our auditor, and yet the budget was approved back in August, and the clerk wanted to have a record tying the two dates, tying the two matters together. I probably butchered that, but okay.
I make a motion, we approve the budget certificate for the budget year of October 1 to 2021 to September 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Let's see. Number 5. 5 and 6 are related, but we'll take them in order. The first one is acting on changing voter precinct boundaries to align with the commissioner precinct boundaries. Ms. Scott is the election administrator. Would you like to speak to this?
This is something that should have gone hand in hand with the maps that we were reviewing for commissioner boundaries. As we change the commissioner boundaries, if we change any election precinct boundaries, there is a statute that says that once we vote on that change, that it has to run in the paper for 3 consecutive weeks, but it has to be approved by the commissioners first.
So this is the notice we would run in the paper.
Correct.
And the statutory background is that the voter precinct boundaries cannot cross the commissioner precincts. So if somebody is in a voter precinct, everybody in that voter precinct has to be voting for the same commissioner.
Correct.
So
So as, I think this was understood as we looked at the commissioner precinct boundaries, we knew we were gonna have to move some of those people. This also changes their voter precinct.
So
So as part of the redistricting process and how we changed the commissioner boundaries, that also affected our election precinct boundaries.
So we have 4 commissioner precincts. We in every county has 4 commissioner precincts. At one time, we had 11 voter precincts. And so some of those have been consolidated, but we still have more than 4. And so some of the commissioner precincts have multiple voter precincts in them. And so this is the notice that the voting precinct boundary is adjusting to match the commissioner precinct boundary.
Correct.
I think voting precincts do have. Now that we
That,
changed,
well, you have,
consolidated 2 of them.
there's 1 and it's just you. And then 2 and 4 are Commissioner 2, 6 and 8 are Commissioner 3, and 9 and 11 are Commissioner 4.
Sounds like we have 7.
So when you're talking with the Secretary of State, they're gonna tell you we have 8 because they count early voting as a place, but that's just gonna confuse everyone if I tell you we have 8, we have 7. So what you're asking,
But it might make more complicated, there's not a team.
right? There's 3, 5, and 7 were consolidated April 24th, 2017. This went through Commissioner's Court then. I didn't find that. I forgot to tell you, I found that.
We eliminated 10.
Where was 10 at? Do you remember?
I don't even remember.
Used to be 1 at Democrat.
Yeah, that may have been. I just remember we eliminated. But we didn't change the number.
Yeah, I mean-
Only 7.
Everybody in the county still gets to vote, and they still vote in the same precinct, commissioner precinct that goes with the maps that are approved. But this is a required notice. It needs to run in the paper, and the notice requires commissioner court approval.
I make a
I think
motion.
it was Ridge,
Ridge.
Was Ridge one of them?
because now there's just Ebony and Goldthwait out there. There was a voting precinct that's Ridge. I do remember that, because my mom and dad complained.
Not many that voted Ebony either. Still today.
I had to either go to Ebony or go to Earth.
I make a motion that we
Okay.
approve the voting precinct boundary alignment with the commissioner precincts public notice.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Williams. Is there a second? Second from Commissioner Parton. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's approved unanimously. Now, also, while we're on elections, number 6, we have to approve the polling places for the calendar year 2022. And there is a list from our election administrator in your package. The only change in location is in precinct 2. And you see it's the Goldthwait Housing Authority, and that's designated as a new location. Is there anything else you want to add?
I know we talked about the commission company, the livestock commission company. The housing authority is handicap accessible. And so that makes it a better choice for a polling location.
And this replaces the Fellowship Baptist Church, is that correct?
Where is the housing authority?
It is,
Down across the.
Kind of behind that store, but on the other street.
yeah, on the other side of the, so if we turn like we're gonna go out 572, there's a community room over there in the housing.
There
authority.
is a community area.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a separate building in the middle, I think.
Never had seen it.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the polling locations for 2022 calendar year.
I'll second it.
A motion by Commissioner Williams, second by Commissioner Parkin. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that's approved unanimously. Consider an act on abatement for the Bluebonnet Wind, on amendment to the Bluebonnet Wind Farm Abatement Agreement. There's a little bit of information in the package. Let me start with saying this is not no longer being presented for action on advice of council. Our wind farm council has advised us that this type of amendment will require a newspaper advertisement and 30 days later by a public hearing before the court can act on it. It's interesting what's going on out there. I've summarized. I'm working with Bluebonnet now on the advertisement or the notice to put in the paper. The 30-day period, this means it would be on the court's agenda February 27th, which is our second meeting in February. In a brief nutshell, the minimum megawatts to be installed and abated is being reduced, but the payment per megawatt is being increased, so the annual payment to the county remains the same. The construction dates are being delayed. The initial payment, however, will occur at the same schedule. And you can see a change in turbine account. And what I'd point to as interesting is the fact that there are currently, 17 turbines in our abated project. There's another 15 turbines to go into Mills County that are unabated. So that's the total project is bigger and more beneficial to the county than the amount that's in the reinvestment zone. And Mr. William Kelsey of Bluebonnet Wind, or actually Swift Current is the sponsor, is with us via Zoom. Mr. Kelsey, would you like to speak to this at this point? Mr. Kelsey, here he comes. And if you could turn your camera on, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. We see you. Your volume is very weak. If you could be close to the microphone when you talk. Ms. Brooks, can you hear Mr. Kelsey?
No, sir, I cannot.
Okay. Well, while Mr. Kelsey's working on his sound, I think the summary comparison that's in your
Judge Smith,
package.
this is Michael Pritchard with Swift Current.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Pritchard.
And as you are well aware of, we've been working, getting you some information on this amendment to the abatement and working with council to get the notice prepared for the publication. General, update to the project is that we will be starting construction soon, March timeframe, March of 22. And for we have made a purchase order of the Nordex wind turbines. They're 41 Nordex wind turbines that is total purchase of amount of just over $40 million. And so we do have that as an update on our project.
Mr. Pritchard, you mentioned starting in March of 2022. The documents I'd received showed a start date of December 2021.
No, well, our construction of the preparation for the turbines will be starting in March.
But there's other construction that's underway on the site.
There has been some preliminary work, yes, sir. But the heart of the construction and heavy mobilization will start in March.
Well, for the court's benefit, this is a time to raise questions or concerns, but we'll have another bite at this. There'll be a notice in the paper saying there'll be a public hearing on this February 27th. And at that point, there will be a draft abatement amendment agreement prepared by our wind counsel, Jeff Allen of Wetzel and Carmichael. And so there's more to come, but wanted to let everybody see this. When we started working on it, it was unclear as to whether or not this amendment would require going back through the public hearing process, but on advice of counsel, that's what we're doing. Mr. Hale, is there anything you would like to add?
No. Did they have any questions for us that we might be concerned about?
Let me pose that to Mr. Kelsey and Mr. Pritchard.
Yes,
Did you?
One other area of concern is I emailed you and the rest of the commissioners this morning with a proposed draft of the county road use agreement and those proposed county roads that we would like to have access to and be able to improve and use for our construction access.
Yeah, I received that, but it was less than an hour before Commissioner's Court, and honestly, I haven't opened it.
Completely
I
understood.
did look to see that it went to Commissioner Guerin, who this is his precinct, and I would rely on his input for the road issue. He is the one y'all should work with to make sure the roads are suitable to what you're proposing to do.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have no further questions from the court. We appreciate your being here, and as soon as you can get me the capital investment numbers, we will try and get the ad in the paper today. Okay, let's see where we are now. Number 8, discussion of bids for road materials and fuel.
Is that going to be bid on the table item on number 7? The one we just discussed on the.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's considered that.
Yeah, okay. There's nothing that, on advice of counsel, we need to have a hearing before we can act. So that's a good point. I'll move we table item number 7 on the abatement amendment to the Blue Bonnet Wind Abatement Agreement, and that we table it until February 27th.
Second.
We have a motion from Judge Smith, second from Commissioner White. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So we have unanimously tabled that till the 27th. Thank you. Okay, now number 7, Commissioner Williams, bids for road materials and fuel.
Well, it kind of be summer, and I'll kind of handle this. Summer, do you want to start off with what's auditor made question on the bids for materials? His concern.
His concern was that when they do an audit, they bring in information and they happen to hit on a vendor that they thought we had spent over $50,000 on, but couldn't find that. They miscalculated, so that was not an issue, but he did informed me that it would be best for us as a small county, just in case we do have to have $50,000 worth of material or fuel to just go ahead and put out bids for that at the first of our fiscal year. And that bid in the newspaper, running for 2 weeks, covers us in the audit.
So,
How does that affect us on the road and bridge project?
so that's where I was going at, Mike. So we're gonna have to, we're gonna need to bid that. Especially,
Or break it up in 4 different deals and
No, that's not how it works. It is umbrella. It's over the whole
yeah,
county. It's not precinct 1, 2, 3, 4. He explained that to me. And I said, that's how we operated on P, you know, that it was 50,000 P, and it's 50,000 as a whole. And I think in the past, normally that wasn't an issue as far as materials.
well, we never had a joint project. This is the first one that we're dealing
We're not
with.
talking about individual
We've
or as
always
a
did.
county whole. It's always been under 50,000.
That is correct. We've always
yeah. And so the statute states that before a county may purchase, it doesn't say each precinct. And so what the auditor's saying is that if we're all buying from one entity, that we may need to.
We've had this discussion before. Precincts don't buy anything. The county buys.
Yeah.
I mean, each precinct has its own budget. It may come out of that precinct's budget, but it's the county that's buying.
Yeah.
And so but that's back to what Summer told me. You can't say, well, this precinct does this and this precinct does that. Well, their budgets do that. But when it comes right down to it, it's the county that's doing it as a whole.
There is some differences on this material that has each different line item, so that we'll need to look at, but we'll need to put this out for bid pretty soon so that we can get people to bid on it. Several of the ones around us are all interested in bidding.
Now, we can accept multiple bids, simultaneous bids, can we not?
Yes.
We have approved 2 or 3 fuel vendors.
And what we can also on the material stuff, you can actually award 2 different companies because it depends on where you're hauling the material. If you're hauling it from one far distance and this one's closer, you can award 2 of them in the same bid. That's the only difference when it comes to material and that you're purchasing.
How does it work then, your old situation in our budget? Precinct 1 says has 30,000 worth of material. Precinct 3 has $50,000 for material. So we need, what you're telling us, we need to bid that also.
Yeah, I mean, the 50,000 limit that you're talking about applies to the county as a whole. And their statute says you cannot piecemeal that to get it down below the 50,000. You have to look at the total. And it's above 50,000.
And Summers, I mean, so we're not at fault for last year. We didn't get any findings or anything, but we could be that way this year. So we really need to open it up for a bidding process on the material for sure. The one reason I
For
added
the road and bridge and for the precincts.
for the precincts, both, yeah, I mean.
It's for the county.
That is what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
right now we're doing precinct.
Because I don't know how much you've bought this year. I've bought some and he's bought some all from the same,
I hadn't bought any this year.
okay. Last year, you
Last
did,
year,
yeah,
that is
but we've all bought from the same
Yes,
company,
yes.
so.
But even though you bid it out, you do not, depending on distance, you do not necessarily have to take the cheapest bid.
Yes, there's, I mean,
We need,
Carol may have to help read this for us, but
we
it does say-
need to take the best bids.
Yes,
And the
it says
best,
you have to take the best.
and the best is a combination of a lot of things, and price is one of them, but
You don't have to take the best bid. There are other factors that you have to take, that you can take into consideration. But if you're not taking the best bid, you better have some reason, some good reason why you're not doing that.
And then there's certain rules. You've got to keep the bids for so long and you've got to, and then people can look at them and there's a lot of requirements.
yeah. Now, in your research on this, Who administers this in the other counties you've talked to?
The auditor.
Okay,
The county auditor, which kind of pushes it back to summer. But talking, I mean, Brownwood, they've got several bids out. They've got for sealed bids for culvert replacement. They got for COVID recovery fund money.
We also have a purchasing agent, is that not correct, instead of auditor?
yes,
Yes.
but I mean,
Don't have it.
that was a loaded question. The point is, we don't have any of the people that typically do
That
this.
is correct.
I
So,
don't know if you can join with another county to help you do this. I don't know on that. There's a lot of paperwork on it. I do know that. So.
yeah, and one thing, and I don't know if you may have already looked into it, is going through some of the shared purchasing cooperatives that we've used, buy board, tips. There's another one with Sourcewell, to see if any of those organizations have,
I don't know if
These
they
type
might
of
have
bids.
fuel, but I don't know if they'll have material.
yeah.
But if you're going used equipment, none of those buy boards or Sourcewell will do used equipment. They won't give you a bid on it. So you'll have, I mean, you can't go through them. You'll have to do a bid through the newspaper process on them. And that's what I discovered on that. So if we were gonna buy a belly dump in a truck from one company, it's over 50,000, you would have to put it up for bid. Couldn't go through Sourcewell or buy board. You see what I'm saying? Yes. So we're definitely gonna have to, and the fuel's the next thing. Jed, I wish Jed was here to talk, but he reached out to TAC and talked to him about the fuel. And they said we didn't have to bid fuel, but from what the auditor's saying and what I'm reading in this, we're gonna have to bid out fuel too, if we all use the same company and it all jumps up. You see what I'm saying? But if we're all using a different company and it doesn't go over that $50,000 mark, you're pretty good.
I think we're using at least 3 different fuel companies.
I think so. We could be using 4, it just depends. But with that will be a consideration. I talked to Hamilton County. They only have one supplier over there, the commissioners over there, and they still put it out for bid every year. And he's the only one that bids on it. So.
It was my understanding that minimum requirement for the audit is having a 2-week ad
Paper.
for these things, so that there is not a finding.
And that's easy enough there.
Just be prepared. We're gonna be working on that summer night. I'm not throwing it on you. And we'll bring it back toward the court, Judge.
Okay,
Let me add that there's no harm in putting something out for a bid, even though you don't have to. And I would say if there's a question about whether, the decision is whether you're required to put something out for a bid or not, I would recommend you put it out for a bid, or you're not going to hurt anything by doing that.
It's funny on the fuel, if you're just buying it from the pump, that doesn't count in your
Right.
overall.
You're talking about both.
It's talking about bulk, and only the precincts do that, so. I don't think the sheriff's department has a bulk fuel, do they? Do they get bulk fuel from you?
no, I believe they use a fuel card.
I didn't know, used to they had a pump,
Precinct 1, that's correct, a tank.
a tank,
Yeah. They have their own tank, fuel tank.
But not anymore.
No, sir, not for several years.
Okay.
That's all I have on this situation.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, Ms. Campbell? Okay. Discussion number 9, discussion of unused vacation carryover. Our approved employee handbook says vacation and holiday pay does not get carried over from one calendar year to the next, except with on the recommendation of the elected official and the approval of the county judge. at the 11th hour, there was a request from the sheriff's department for, let's see, I thought 6, but this has penciled in a 7th name of carryover. Most of them were on the magnitude of 1 or 2 days, with the exception of Debbie Gerbo, which was almost a week and a half. And the sheriff signed it. I looked it over. I'm just telling you, I approved it. It was too late in the calendar cycle to do anything, even have a discussion of it. But that's done and documented. And I invite you, if you have any questions, come talk to either me, Summer, or the sheriff, because I don't know much more than what I just told you. Okay, number 10. Discussion of EMS dispatching. All the commissioners were copied, and the county attorney, I believe, were copied on a email from Sheriff Hammond, February 5th. It's in your package just for reference, and the long and short of it is it purports to give 120 days notice that he will discontinue EMS dispatching, and telling the court we need to make other arrangements.
What in the world is that going to cost the county?
You know,
Have y'all looked into it?
here's what I do know. In Hamilton County, they went to a central dispatch set up separate from the sheriff's department for different reasons, but same type of thing. Moved it all over, recreated the people and the technology, and off from memory, it was $1.3 million.
Well, that's what I expect to say. I remember you and Jed talking
Yeah.
before that the tire site would be $1 million, equipment 300,000, and plus
Yeah,
the
no.
personnel to run it.
And yeah, I mean, it's a 24/7 operation. And so you need a supervisor, you need at least 3 people to cover the shift, and probably a 4th for sickness and vacation. So you're talking 4 or 5 people plus hardware, plus all the ancillary. And that's without studying it to see if there's any other way to do it. There might be other approaches, a joint interlocal for a shared dispatch with San Saba or Hamilton, Lampasas, or someone else. There's no good economic solution, and I'd be embarrassed, although I wasn't on the court at the time. A bond issue was, the voters were convinced to approve a bond issue north of, $7 million to build a law enforcement center to include offices, dispatch, and jail. And now we're being told we need to recreate a part of that. So we're paying for it twice, in effect.
So
does
does Hamilton EMS have the ability to do their own dispatching?
No, they do not. I mean, they're dispatched by the Hamilton Consolidated.
So does this bring
Emergency
up concerns
services.
for our contract with them?
Well, we have not received a default notice from them, but the county's contract with them provides that the county will provide dispatching. So there's that.
Well, that was kind of agreed on in the discussion with the sheriff and the court when all that took place.
Well, I mean,
He would keep it in, he would do it in the sheriff's office.
I'm going outside of the 4 corners of the sheriff's email, but I've heard him say in the past that he was not bound by that agreement because he was not a signature to it.
That is correct. But it was just a discussion, not a difference in the EMS billing itself. I thought we've had it. But evidently that's not either.
Yeah, we can talk about that, but that's going the other way.
You gotta have a location for it. I mean, if we decide to dispatch it out somewhere.
Or we co-locate in the room that it's in now, but that could be messy because it's in the secured portion of the jail because it's double staffed by jailers. Or actually the Tyler jailer dispatch or dispatch jail.
Is there companies out there that do dispatch that we could hire or that Hamilton could hire or something like that? I mean, is there companies out there that just do that transfer dispatch?
I'm not aware of any, but I haven't spent a lot of time going down that route. I do know that some of the commercial ambulance companies, Lifeguard, Arcadia, and those types will have a national dispatch office. Because I've heard complaints from other judges where the dispatcher will be in, say, Nashville. And people call and say, hey, we've got a car wreck just down the street from the old Paget place. And that doesn't register in Nashville.
I know from the county standpoint of it, I don't know. I'm gonna say it. I don't want to say it, but I'm gonna say it. Are we required to have EMS service?
No, EMS service is not a requirement.
Correct, but it's a real good benefit for the taxpayers that we do provide.
I think in the public health and safety category, I think it's the most important as far as life and death type service that we offer to the citizens or anybody in Mills County. You don't have to be a citizen.
Sure.
Mr. Hale, would you like to weigh in on any of this?
No, he doesn't, but
Oh, I might just make a couple of observations, I guess. Right before I came in here, my chief assistant at my office, when she handed me the agenda, reminded me that several years ago, her daddy actually answered EMS calls at his house when he was at home, and he had an office in the courthouse, and there wasn't a dispatch. If you needed an ambulance, you called him. Also, that was before GPS, and he had a kind of road map, and he tried his best to get to the call as fast as he could. So I guess that's one alternative if the court decides to go back to that. I guess the other observation I might make is the jail and all the equipment in the jail does not belong to the sheriff, it belongs to the county. And if the sheriff's office decides that they are not going to use that equipment for handling the EMS calls, then maybe the county can come up with some plan to have their own person, and I would maybe would be qualified for equipment or whatever, but there's not even a reason why the commissioner court couldn't decide to set up their own EMS answering service in the jail. Maybe somebody said it was in a secure area, maybe move it or make it whatever, I don't know. But just want to remind the court that jail is not belong to the sheriff, it belongs to the county.
so how does the 911 system work? No, Jeff, you know.
Yes, the 911 system is funded through 50-cent charges on your phone bill. It's administered through the Council of Governments, both the technical administration of it and the funds flow. The funds are used to buy the equipment. The equipment on the county side is called a PSAP in their lingo, which stands for Public Service Answering Point. And the number of PSAPs are allocated around the state of Texas, largely based on population. Mills County, because I've asked this, is could we just have another PSAP answering point for 911? And the answer is no. Based on our county size, we're entitled to one. That's currently in the law enforcement center. Now, we have 2 operator stations, I understand, in the law enforcement center. One is in the glass, I'll call it a fishbowl, that overlooks the jail and all the security cameras. And that's the one that's has the radio connection that's primarily manned all the time. There is a backup set of equipment located in the head jailer's office. So with the desk and all the setup. So we could put a non-law enforcement person, I guess, on that station and not have the equipment. If we needed more equipment, it would work through the cog to move equipment out of there. We could not get more equipment. What they do is continually update it. They provide the 911 addresses, the geo mapping, everything that you need. So when the call comes in to 911, as best they can, it tells you where it is coming from.
What keeps the sheriff's office real simple? Mash one button and transfer the call to EMS.
Well,
Yeah, but if you're on the same system, that's what.
Well,
if you transfer it to them, the minute you transfer the call, you've lost the ability on the mapping to know where everything is. So then they're talking to a new person who's going to have to tell them where they are and describe that. They're going to have to know where they are. And then EMS is going to have to be able to communicate via radio, pager, and two-way radio with the ambulances. And just right now, there's no radio reception that reaches from Hamilton to here. Now, San Saba radio does reach here. It has to do with terrain and tower size, I think.
but what I'm saying though is that once they transfer the call, like say if it comes in a 911 call to the sheriff's office, transfers that call to EMS directly, they do the same thing with sheriff's office does. They ask the questions, what's the emergency?
And then they'll have to dispatch an ambulance. The point is they don't have a dispatch function at EMS. You would be talking to the ambulance crew. So they're not going to be able to get off the phone and start driving till they're through talking to that person. And I believe the usual protocol is to try and stay on the line and give advice and help. But I'm way over my skis when I make that statement.
Like I say, I don't know. how
I'm disappointed that nobody, Debbie Gerby's there.
Debbie's here.
I was hoping that how you put in court jargon, it would be the plaintiff, but somebody would be here to speak to what the problem really is. Everything I've heard, it's my impression is it all centers around helicopter protocol.
Well, that's what kind of the deal that was printed to us,
Right.
it kind of says is that, EMS changes the sheriff's protocol out. I mean, in other words, I think they try to dispatch like the first helicopter available. If it's available, then they'll go and that's.
Yeah,
I hear.
What I think, I'm glad that we're having this discussion, but I think we don't have all the parties we need to solve this. It's critical enough we want to talk about it. I think what makes the most sense for the citizens of Mills County is to try and solve this problem. We've had consolidated dispatch for at least 2 generations. I was not aware of Mary Ann's father-in-law or father, but it was, at the old jail. So that's pre-1918, 1960. When did we do that?
1991 is what you told me.
Okay, so we've been
Before
doing
that,
this
it was
for a
in
long
Hazel's
time,
house. Hearts and Hazel's now.
and it works. And when you,
911 service was initiated in Equal.
a lot of these calls, you've got multiple agencies responding to. Many of them, you also need the fire department, or you also need the law enforcement. Bad car wrecks, a good example. You just say, okay, we'll send the wrecker and law enforcement, and we'll transfer you to talk to somebody and see if you need an ambulance. It is an extra step. So my suggestion would be we try and get, and I don't know how we make it happen, the parties that are involved, the sheriff, people from the hospital district, somebody from the court, somebody maybe a just disinterested, not disinterested, but other citizen groups. So one of our volunteer fire chiefs that has experience working with dispatch, with EMS, with the sheriff. Because, I mean, that's.
I thought we tried to do this months ago to get everybody parties together.
It didn't happen. And I don't know how to make it happen, other than suggest that this has worked for years. Apparently it's a problem now or this year. It seems to relate to helicopters. Let's let the people that are closer to the problem, ask them to solve it.
So,
And not everybody take their marbles and go home.
so Judge, what happens if that happens? If everybody says, no, I'm not gonna agree, we only have 120 days. What happens if the 120 days is up?
Evidently, the sheriff's office going to quit dispatching.
What happens?
That's what it says
I
here.
mean, I don't know what that looked like, Commissioner,
That's what
right?
I'm
Does that
trying to figure
mean,
out.
oh, we want an ambulance? I'm sorry, we don't do that. They hang up.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
I don't know how it's going to work either.
But yeah,
They're just going to dispatch out.
Well,
They'll
we
have
can't
to.
do anything without a conglomerate meeting. I mean, you gotta have all parties involved.
Sure.
To try to figure
but
something
I
out.
don't know that this is the right setting for it, because when you just think of all the parties involved, the hospital district's a public entity just like we are.
Sure they are.
And so we have a joint public meeting with two of that, plus a fire department, plus, the sheriff.
Well,
I mean, we don't even,
driven by Mr. Cobb, isn't it?
But he's an employee. I mean, it's a department of Hamilton Hospital District.
Okay.
I think there may be personalities involved, and if we could, the head of the hospital district, the CEO of it is willing to sit down and try and figure out what the problem is and address it. But only if the interested parties are involved, not just unilaterally with the sheriff. He wants county government involved. I think we ought to have somebody else involved too. And my suggestion would be some of our fire chiefs, because if we're going to discontinue ambulance service, that's the next step. Is do you discontinue? When might we get one of these? We're going to discontinue dispatching fire departments. So we either have to plan for a consolidated dispatch facility, or we have to understand that it's not going to work and be able to do everything individually.
Has the sheriff office said they're going to discontinue the fire department?
No, they have not.
See, that's, I don't see it either. That's really nice.
No, but I mean, if you think this through, something is led to this, and they've done it for years and now they're not, because you've got to figure out what's going on here and be prepared to deal with it. So,
Gosh, like you said, I think we ought to put the parties involved.
well, I'll,
Still trying to make an effort to do it. I don't know
Yeah.
if it can or not, but I think we need to.
well, I mean, it's got to can, because it's worked for 25 years. There's got to be I'm assuming there's a rational reason behind this. And if we could address it rationally, rather than just say, okay, we've done this for 25 years, we're not going to do it anymore. We need to try and solve the problem.
I really think the community is gonna be upset when they hear about this. I just want all of us to be prepared, because they don't know about this until maybe it comes out of the newspaper this week.
Well, I mean, what can the county do except
Except for having-
try and, I mean, we can either start down the road, and I'll start this, trying to find an interlocal agreement for a emergency service dispatch from another governmental agency. I'll get that ball rolling. We'll try and get the groups together, but that requires voluntary participation. to try and solve this problem. And I'll explore with the logistics of using that alternate dispatch station and staffing it. And that, you know, several of these things are just extra cost to the taxpayers.
Big cost. It's
Yeah,
not-
potentially.
There's gonna be some big dollars.
Yeah. And it's to what benefit? I mean, and to follow up with your suggestion, Mike, it was like, we're not required to do this. I don't.
It's not a suggestion. I just,
Okay.
I knew that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, make sure you get that out.
If-
Don't throw that out.
okay, if anybody thinks we just should walk away from EMS, let's say so, because I don't. I think it's probably more important to our
I agree
average
with you.
citizen than any other emergency service we have.
And I've said this before, and I'm gonna repeat myself again. I mean, the budget was adopted by the county with the understanding that the sheriff's office was going to be answering the EMS call. And if the sheriff's office is not going to do that anymore, then maybe the sheriff's budget should be adjusted accordingly. At least some of it maybe should be taken out of the sheriff's budget on what this cost is going to be. I think you should also take the sheriff at his word that he's not going to answer, his office is not going to answer his phone anymore. And so unless that changes in the near future, immediate future, then I think the county should go on forward with figuring out how we're going to do that.
Can we actually reduce his budget, Gerald?
I mean, it's the county's budget, you know.
I
Yeah.
don't know
The
that.
county can make adjustments to the budget along the way. And of course,
It'd be a line item transfer.
the problem you have legally, and Sumner knows this, is that you have to increase the budget substantially. There's law that says you can do that only when you have an emergency, which I guess being able to answer an emergency call is an emergency. But there are problems with increasing the budget in the middle of the budget cycle.
Yeah. Do we have anybody from EMS here?
Online.
I'm looking. I don't see them. Oh, yeah, Mr. Cobb. Mr. Cobb, is there anything you'd like to add?
Judge, can you hear me?
Yes. And let's not go into details and patient medical information or any of that.
No, I was just going to stay at the 10,000-foot view and talk about nuts and bolts. As far as the technology is concerned, yes, you can transfer a 911 call to really any 10-digit phone number you want to transfer it to. You are correct that once you do that, unless there's a computer on the other end to receive that call, you do lose the mapping and all the 911 addressing information and so forth. So we're answering a blind phone call. But all that telephone equipment you reference, you are also correct in that it is maintained and provided by the COG through your 911 surcharges on your monthly phone bills. To complicate that, the most expensive piece and what the county would end up having hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost is the radio side of it. Even though we might be able to answer a phone call anywhere we transfer it to, even with the loss of mapping, to be able to communicate via radio to not just your first ambulance, but the next 2 or 3 ambulances coming behind it that are operating in your county at the same time. Hamilton County's radio system doesn't reach into Goldthwaite. San Saba County does to the southern half of Mills County, but it doesn't cover all of Mills County. So there is a tremendous expense in the radio technology that would be needed to pull this off. But above all that, our biggest frustration in EMS would be losing the ability to be dispatched and coordinated by the same person who's talking to the sheriff's deputy on the same call, the DPS trooper on the same call, and the volunteer fire department on the same call. That's where employee safety becomes a problem, because you're not all talking to and coordinated by the same agency, the same room, the same group of people that's coordinating everyone else. And that's our biggest concern.
Do you have a problem sitting down with the judge?
No, not at all.
I mean, Also the sheriff?
No, sir. In fact, we've had meetings already periodically for the last several months between the hospital district and the court and various members of the court. But the sheriff's office has not attended those meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Okay, I think this is going to be an item on our agenda every meeting from now on. And the parts that I have talked, I mean, unless we can solve it, this is important enough that we need to.
Well, at least for 120 days.
Yeah, well, you're right. And I will, I volunteered to do some of the follow-up. I will get more information and report back on some of those options and also talk to the sheriff about trying to have a meeting. I understand he's out of town to address, to see if we can identify the problems and address them.
I agree. I think that's a very important bit. Like I say, EMS, even Hamilton's district, that evidently the hospital has to be involved too. So,
Yes, that's why I wanted to, not just Mr. Cobb on the ambulance side, I want to have the hospital district involved. Okay, well, that was listed for discussion and we have discussed. Consider an act on declaring judge's office computer tower serial number as scrap. This is the former judge's computer that was in my office when I took office. The power button is broken. It can't reliably be turned on or off. It is at this point 3 years older than it was. I will pull the hard drive from it, but it's broken and inoperable.
I make a motion that we declare the judge's office Coolmaster computer tower serial number as written as scrap and disposing of it.
I'll second that. So motion, Commissioner Williams, second from Judge Smith. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Commissioners requesting reports.
Precinct 1, we've installed 310 arms on County Road 424. It's cleared right away on 10 on County Road 510. We painted and patched the storage container that's housing the Christmas lights. It looks real good. I met with CTTC for County Road 429 and also 318 to place fiber. That's all I have.
Okay. See, Commissioner Guerin was unable to join us, so Commissioner Parkin.
Did, and there was a bill in there. Was able to find an old motor. Hopefully when we get it torn down, we'll have the pieces we need to repair the old truck, hopefully. Did meet with one of the Blackner representatives the other day out on 262. They've got a couple of entrances that are going to be problems from now on, so they're going to work on them and try to get them to where they won't be as detrimental to the county road. It'll be, in case we ever get any rain, it'll be washout. Clearing Petro right now is still hauling some dirt out on 508. It's actually nearly getting too dry to even haul dirt and put it down. We had to borrow Mike's water truck and water some corners the other day. People turning, going around those corners is just starting to powder out bad. And the only other thing I've got is kind of got the idea from Mike's office out there. He has an overlay over his precinct map, and kind of did that so that we could see kind of what we were getting accomplished on a year-to-year basis, and keep it marked down. Mainly as little incentive for me the hands, if they can look at that thing, and say we are getting something done. And while I was doing that, I haven't checked with Jackie this morning. Kind of wrote, didn't know we were supposed to do that, but kind of wrote a year-end summary of what we did through the precinct for this past year. So don't know that that's required. I think you do have to do a yearly summary report on the roads. Is that right?
This last budget legislation cycle, they took that out. So we do not have to do a road report anymore. But they took it out of the.
It's good to keep on hand.
Yeah.
Anybody can ask me in my precinct, I go out and show them what we do and my budget calls for what I'm doing.
You just don't have to turn it into grand jury. Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, that's kind of it. Kind of finished out 2021 and look forward to some rain in 2022. I guess.
So we're kind of like y'all. We've put in, installed a culvert across the road in 508. We tried to haul some material in that same spot where we put that culvert, and the next thing you know, it's just powdering out. I mean, it's just so dry. Watered it in and packed it in with our truck. Had to dry blade a bunch of roads, some county roads. The road boards are getting so bad, so we did 418, 416, 432. Probably gonna do 508 today. Repaired the cylinders on the backhoe. That was at $1,800 that Mike was asking if I went to school on.
No, he asked you if you ate it.
I ate it. Yeah, I ate it. So, got some material, hauled it to the barn, got starting that. And that's pretty much it. I have, Kenneth is gone. He is retired. He's got a week of vacation that he's using this week. And I've made a new hire. The new hire, y'all all know, wants to come back and work for the county is Robbie Hurst. And so Robbie officially is going to get doctors and all that other stuff that you have to do for pre-employment today. So
You're gonna appreciate him. He's a good young man.
well, you know, he'll come on to the county and he's right under 10 years of experience with the county. And so he'll come on nearly as one of the oldest experienced people that we've got on the county. So I was surprised when he applied, but
That's good.
he's got some family issues that he wants to get back home and not be away from home so much. So glad to have him back. And that's it. There's your money.
Okay. Well, we're talking about roads. This isn't a county road, although it's an important road to the county. 574, the Hannah Valley Road. There's the bridge over Pecan Bayou was damaged by a truck wreck.
Yes, sir.
And that thing is squeezed down to a single lane with an automated traffic control device either way. And the residents had been complaining about how long that'd been going on. I talked to TxDOT and they said, well, maybe March or April to get it fixed. Now,
Are we putting money on this?
Now, yeah, this isn't county, but it affects our ability to respond to everything out there, from precinct business to law enforcement, fire, everything. This is secondhand just over the weekend. Some residents are telling me TxDOT's talking to them about making the bridge bigger, which would mean tearing it down and rebuilding it, which means the road might actually be closed, and it's going to be a type of detour like the Regency Bridge. So a trip to that part of the county might be.
Gerald, how you gonna see the mom and daddy every day, huh?
That part is,
Yeah, you feed those cows.
that part is hearsay. Mr. Johnson, do you know anything about that first? Okay.
He's got cows out there though.
Mr. Hale, have you had any contact with TxDOT? Okay.
I'm gonna check on it because I haven't.
Back to the emergency situation though, I mean, I can see where that's a problem because there's a danger running the red light, even if you've got emergency lights flashing, because you can't see around the corner.
That's right.
Who's coming.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what you do if you're an ambulance, you get there and the light red.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, you just have to wait.
Okay, so that's on roads.
Or you take the other route and go all the way around.
Mhm.
Yeah, which would, that wouldn't be a good alternative. It would be quicker to wait for the red line.
Yeah, but if they close it and build a new bridge is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Years ago, that was a low water problem. Look into that.
Yeah, the way it rains, we could use that for a long time. Wanted to make sure everybody gets, maybe give some appreciation to Guy Burns for managing the Christmas light process. We got them up and now we got them down. And thanks to Precinct 1 for managing the delivery and setup of the storage container. They are all safely put away. And this is now a problem for next year. We've got COVID in the courthouse. We're seeing a lot of new cases in Mills County over the last month, more so than any of the prior months. It does appear to be less severe. We've got fewer people dying and in the hospital, but we're a little bit like a 6-man football team. You get a 2-person county office and one person's sick, the other person's exposed, and all of a sudden your office is shut. So just to give you an example, I think we have that problem now with the JP office latter part of last week and maybe even today, and also voter vehicle registration. So just be careful out there. Reminder, early voting starts February 14th. That's only about 5 weeks off. It's going to be in the community center again, but I'd ask that you encourage as many people as possible to take advantage of that early voting. That'll save any of the confusion that goes along with redistricting or changing one of the voting locations. And early voting runs for, is it 2 weeks? So there's plenty of time. County jury trial we had scheduled for tomorrow, had mail notices to a whole bunch of people, 50 or more. That trial's been postponed into March. So all of those people, we've been trying to let them know they don't need to come. It's website, Eagle, all of that, but signs on the door. But if you hear anything about it, that's what happened and it's life. And I think we got the stock show coming up and that's about all I've got. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's vote on it. All in favor of adjourn, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned.